3 months ago, I was 2 payments away from losing my apartment. Now I look at the golden key in my hand, and I still can't believe my luck. Sarah Mitchell, Realtor of the Month. Finally. The house at 47 Elm Street came to me like a gift from the heavens. 2 stories, an impeccable garden, a gourmet kitchen, 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms. The kind of property that sells itself. The price? 40% below market value. I knew there was a catch. There always is. But when my boss, Mr. Henley, handed me the file, he made only one demand. Sarah, listen closely. This house has one simple, non-negotiable rule. He leaned over the desk, his grey eyes fixing me with a seriousness I had never seen in him. The basement stays locked, always. You don't show it, you don't open it, you don't mention it. If they ask, make something up. Structural issues, leaks, whatever. But that door does not open. I thought it was a joke. Mr. Henley always had a strange sense of humour, but when I saw he wasn't smiling, I just nodded. A $40,000 commission for a sale like this? I'd turn a blind eye to a lot more than a mysterious basement. What I didn't know was that some secrets have a life of their own. And this secret was starving. The first time I walked into the house, I immediately felt something was wrong. It was nothing obvious. The house was too perfect. Every room looked like it was straight out of a design magazine. But there was a heavy silence, as if the air was denser than normal. And there was that door. At the end of the first-floor hallway, a dark wooden door with an old-fashioned lock. Gold, just like the key I carried, but my key didn't open it. I tried, of course. Curiosity has always been my weakness. When I first put my hand on the doorknob, I felt something that made me pull back instantly. The wood was hot. Not warm, but hot, as if there were a fire on the other side. But there was no smell of smoke, nothing. Just that inexplicable heat and a strange feeling that someone was watching me through the wood. 2 weeks later, I had already scheduled 17 viewings. The house was causing a frenzy in the market. Everyone wanted to see it. Everyone fell in love with it. But everyone inevitably asked about that door. The Henderson family was the first. A young couple, 2 small children, a tight budget but big dreams. Exactly the kind of client I needed for a quick close. "This house is incredible, Sarah," Mrs. Henderson said, running her hand over the marble kitchen countertop. "For the asking price, is there some kind of structural problem?" I forced a smile. "Absolutely not. The previous owners just had to move urgently. Family matters, you know how it is." A lie. I had no idea who the previous owners were. The paperwork only showed an investment firm I'd never heard of. "And that door in the hallway?" Mr. Henderson asked, pointing in the direction I dreaded most. "We couldn't get it open." "Oh, that?" I took a deep breath. "It's just a storage space. Unfortunately, there was a small leak last week, and the area is being treated for mold. A safety precaution, you understand. But it's nothing that affects the rest of the house." They seemed satisfied with the explanation. Until we heard the noise. It was a muffled sound, like someone knocking on the wood from the other side of the door. 3 slow knocks, a pause, then 3 more. We all froze. "What was that?" Mrs. Henderson asked, instinctively pulling her children closer. My heart hammered against my ribs, but I kept my composure. It must be the heating system. Old houses have their quirks. The pipes make strange noises sometimes. But I knew that wasn't it. There was no central heating in that house. And that sound, it was different, deliberate, as if someone was trying to communicate. The Hendersons left 20 minutes later, promising to think about the offer. I knew they wouldn't be back. I stayed alone in the house for another hour, trying to understand what had happened. I walked to the basement door and pressed my ear against the wood. Absolute silence. But as I tried to pull away, I heard something that made my blood run cold. It was a voice. Low, almost a whisper, but clearly human. It was saying something I couldn't understand, but the tone was one of pleading, as if someone was begging for help. I grabbed my phone and called Mr. Henley. Henley Realty, how can I help you? Mr. Henley, it's Sarah. I need to talk to you about the house on Elm Street. There was a long pause. Any problem with the clients? Not exactly. It's about the basement. I heard noises coming from there and… Sarah. His voice became sharp, cutting. We had an agreement. You sell the house, I pay your commission. The basement is not your concern. But if there's someone down there… There is no one down there, he interrupted. And even if there were, it wouldn't be your problem. Do you want to keep your job? The line went dead. I knew he had hung up, but I kept the phone to my ear for a few more seconds, processing the conversation. There was something in his voice I had never heard before. Fear. Mr. Henley was afraid. I went home that night with more questions than answers. But one thing I knew for sure, that commission wasn't just money. It was my chance to start over, to get out of the financial hole I'd been sinking into for months. I would do anything not to lose this opportunity. Anything. Over the next 2 weeks, I developed a system. I always scheduled viewings in the afternoon when the sun lit the house brightly. I spoke quickly, keeping clients focused on the positives, and when someone asked about the door, I had 3 prepared excuses, depending on their profile. With young couples, I talked about termite treatment. With families, it was a safety issue because of an uneven foundation. With investors, I mentioned pending renovations that wouldn't affect the value. It worked for a while. Mrs. Martinez was different. An experienced investor around 60 with sharp eyes that seemed to see right through lies. She examined every corner of the house with the precision of an inspector. Interesting, she said, stopping in front of the basement door. This lock is far too old for a recently renovated house. I forced a laugh. The previous owners had a thing for vintage details. She moved closer to the door and, to my horror, pressed her ear against the wood. Sarah, do you hear that? My stomach twisted into a knot. Hear what? It sounds like breathing, like someone is sleeping on the other side. I was about to invent another excuse when the sound started again. It wasn't the knocking from before. It was worse. It was a constant scratching, like fingernails against wood, accompanied by a low, prolonged moan. Mrs. Martinez backed away immediately. There's someone down there. No, there isn't. My voice came out louder than I intended. It's the ventilation system. It needs maintenance. But she was already walking toward the front door. Sarah, I've been in real estate for 30 years. I know when something isn't right. Whatever you people are hiding, I want no part of it. She left without another word, leaving me alone with that horrible sound echoing behind me. After Mrs. Martinez left, I should have left too. I should have walked away and never looked back. But there was something about those noises that pulled me in. A morbid curiosity I couldn't ignore. I walked slowly to the door and placed my palm on the wood. It was even hotter than the first time, almost burning. The scratching stopped instantly, as if whoever was on the other side knew I was there. Then I heard the voice again, clearer this time. Sarah. My name. That thing knew my name. I snatched my hand back as if I'd been electrocuted. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear the pulse in my ears. How the hell did it know who I was? I ran out of the house and didn't stop until I reached my car. My hands were shaking so badly it took me 3 tries to get the key into the ignition. That night, I called my sister in Chicago. "Kate, I have to tell you something." "Sarah, are you okay? Your voice sounds strange." I told her everything. The house, the rules, the noises, the voice that knew my name. Kate listened in silence, which was rare for her. "Sarah," she said finally, "have you ever thought that maybe it's all in your head? You've been under a lot of stress lately with the bills, the job." "I'm not imagining it, Kate. There is something in that house." "Then quit. Find another job. Move in with me here if you have to." But we both knew I couldn't do that. The $40,000 from the commission was my only way out. Without that money, I would lose everything. "Just a few more weeks," I told her, and myself. "Just until I can sell it." But deep down, I already knew that house wouldn't let me go that easily. The 3rd week was when things really started to fall apart. It wasn't just occasional noises or whispered voices anymore. It was as if the house had gained a consciousness of its own and decided I was now a part of it. The Thompsons arrived on a rainy Thursday, the perfect family. He was a lawyer, she was a teacher, 2 teenage daughters. The kind of client that closes the deal on the first visit. "This house is exactly what we've been looking for," Mr. Thompson said, admiring the living room fireplace. "The price is fantastic for this area." I was just starting my sales pitch when his youngest daughter, a girl of about 14, came running down the stairs. "Dad, someone's knocking on the door downstairs." I felt the blood freeze in my veins. "What door, honey?" "That one at the end of the hall. Someone's banging on it from the inside like they want to get out." Mrs. Thompson frowned. "Sarah, what door is that?" Before I could answer, we all heard it. It wasn't the knocking from before. It was something much worse. It sounded like someone was kicking the door with force, accompanied by muffled screams, like a person was desperate to escape. "Oh my God," Mrs. Thompson whispered, instinctively pulling her daughters close. "There's someone trapped down there." "No, there isn't." My voice came out trembling. It's just the heating." But even I didn't believe my own lies anymore. That wasn't a faulty heating system. It was something far more disturbing. Mr. Thompson strode purposefully towards the door. "I'm going to check if someone's in danger." "No!" I yelled, placing myself between him and the door. "I'm sorry, you can't open that door. It's a legal matter. Property disputes, complex issues." The look he gave me was one of pure suspicion. "Sarah, either you explain what's happening here or I'm calling the police right now." That's when the temperature in the house plummeted. In a matter of seconds, the air became so cold we could see our own breath. The windows began to fog up, and a strange smell filled the room. It wasn't rot or mold. It was something chemical, as if the air itself was decomposing. "We're leaving. Now." Mrs. Thompson grabbed her daughters and practically dragged them to the front door. I was left alone again, but this time I knew something had permanently shifted. The house was no longer trying to hide whatever was in the basement. It was showing off. When the cold passed and the temperature returned to normal, I cautiously approached the basement door. I pressed my ear against the wood and heard something that made me question my own sanity. It was a conversation. Multiple voices speaking at the same time, as if there were a group of people on the other side. But I couldn't understand the words. It was like they were speaking a language I'd never heard, or maybe like they were speaking from a place that didn't follow the same rules as our world. One voice rose above the others. It was clear, direct, and spoke in perfect English. "Sarah, you know you can't run forever. Some places, some unsettling realities, they don't just let you leave." My hand trembled on the doorknob. Unsettling realities. What the hell did that mean? We know about your debts, Sarah. We know about your desperation. We can help, but first, you have to help us. I backed away from the door as if it were on fire. My phone rang at that exact moment, making me jump. Sarah? It was Mr. Henley. The Thompsons just called. They said there was an incident at the house. Care to explain? Mr. Henley, I think we need to talk in person. There is something very wrong with that house. There was a long pause. Sarah, meet me at the office in an hour. And Sarah, don't go back to that house alone. Ever again. Mr. Henley's office had never seemed so small and claustrophobic. He was sitting behind his desk but looked like he had aged 10 years since our last conversation. There were half-empty whiskey bottles and stacks of documents he clearly wasn't managing to process. Sit down, Sarah. His voice was hoarse. I need to tell you a few things I should have said from the beginning. I had never seen my boss like this. Mr. Henley was always the type of man who controlled everything, who had an answer for any situation. Now he looked terrified. The house on Elm Street isn't a normal property. The previous owners, well, they didn't exactly move out. What do you mean by that? He poured 2 glasses of whiskey and pushed one toward me. They disappeared. The whole family. The Jenkins, that was their name. Husband, wife, 2 young kids. One day they were there, the next, they just weren't. A chill ran down my spine. And the police? Found no signs of forced entry, no evidence of them running away. They just vanished. But there was one strange thing. All the doors in the house were locked from the inside, except for one. I already knew which door he was talking about. Sarah, you need to understand. That house, it doesn't exist entirely in our world. It's like a meeting point between our reality and another place. A place some people call Zarathiel. The word left his mouth as if it burned him. Zarathiel. Even without knowing what it meant, just hearing it made me feel nauseous. What is this place? I don't know exactly. I know it's a parallel reality, a distorted mirror of our world, and I know that sometimes people disappear into it, and other things come from there to here. I finished the whiskey in one gulp. Then why the hell did you make me sell this house? Because I had no choice. He slammed his fist on the desk. They contacted me, the inhabitants of Zarathiel. They said they needed someone to be the bridge, someone to bring people to the house. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. You used me as bait. Sarah, Before he could finish, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. Sarah Mitchell? The voice on the other end was calm, professional. Yes? My name is David Carter. I saw the listing for the house on Elm Street online. I know it's late, but would it be possible to schedule a viewing for right now? I'm very interested. I looked at Mr. Henley, who was shaking his head vigorously. Mr. Carter, unfortunately, we don't do viewings after 7 p.m. I'll pay extra, double. You can name your price. Something in his voice made me hesitate. There was an urgency I couldn't explain, as if he knew something we didn't. Sarah, no, Mr. Henley whispered. But 40,000 became 80,000 in my head. $80,000 that would solve all my problems. All right, Mr. Carter. I'll meet you there in an hour. When I hung up, Mr. Henley had his head in his hands. Sarah, you have no idea what you've just done. But I was already walking out of the office. $80,000 was $80,000. Besides, what could possibly go so wrong? An hour later, I was standing in front of the house on Elm Street, waiting for David Carter. The night was strangely silent. No crickets, no passing cars, no wind. It was as if the world itself was holding its breath. When he arrived, I knew immediately I had made a terrible mistake. David Carter didn't look entirely human. His movements were too precise, too calculated. His eyes were too dark, and when he smiled, I saw his teeth were just a little too sharp. Thank you for seeing me so late, Sarah. I know this is irregular. No problem. My voice came out weaker than I wanted. Shall we see the house? But when we opened the front door, we both knew something was different. The house was no longer trying to hide its secrets. The basement door was wide open. And the darkness rising from that basement wasn't natural. It wasn't just an absence of light. It was something dense, viscous, that seemed to move with a life of its own. David Carter walked down the first few steps as if he were coming home. Come, Sarah. It's time for you to meet your real employers. My feet refused to move, but something was pulling me down the stairs. It wasn't curiosity. It was as if invisible threads were tied to my body, dragging me into that darkness. The basement was impossible. It was far larger than the house should allow, stretching into tunnels that seemed to have no end. The walls were made of a substance that pulsed like living flesh, and the air tasted of copper and despair. Welcome to Zarathiel, Sarah. And that's when I saw them. In the center of that impossible space, there were people. Dozens of them. But they weren't really people anymore. They were shadows of what they once were, floating in a kind of limbo between existing and not existing. I recognized the Jenkins family immediately, the family that had disappeared. They looked at me with eyes that held an eternity of suffering, their lips moving in a silent plea. They brought others to us, David explained, his voice echoing from places that shouldn't exist. Just as you did, just as you will continue to do. That's when I understood. I wasn't just a realtor selling a house. I was a collector of souls for Zarathiel. Every client I brought, every family I showed this house to, I was feeding this starving reality. No, the word came out as a weak whisper. I didn't know, but you know now, and knowledge, Sarah, has a price. I felt something changing inside me. My reflection on the pulsating walls began to blur, as if I were slowly ceasing to exist in this world, to become part of that one. You can choose, David continued. You can join them, or you can continue to serve us. Keep bringing people to us, but you can no longer pretend you don't know the truth. I looked at the Jenkins, at the other souls trapped in that place between worlds, and I understood there was no real choice. There never was. What do you want from me? David smiled, and for a moment, I saw through the human mask he wore. There was something ancient there, something that existed long before humans walked the earth. Keep doing what you've always done, Sarah. Sell houses, bring families, feed Zarathiel. In return, you'll keep your life. Most of it. I felt a burning on the palm of my hand. When I looked, a mark was there, a symbol that hurt to look at directly, as if my mind refused to fully process it. This mark is your chain, Sarah. You are part of us now, and we are part of you. The darkness began to recede, pulling me back to the real world. But I knew it would never be truly real for me again. I had seen beyond the veil, and some knowledge can't be unlearned. When I was back upstairs, David Carter was gone. The basement door was closed again, but the golden key in my hand now burned like hot iron. I walked out of that house knowing I would be back, that I would bring others, that I would continue to feed the insatiable hunger of Zarathiel. Because now I wasn't just Sarah Mitchell, real estate agent. I was a bridge between worlds, and some bridges can never be burned. That was 3 weeks ago. Today, I sold 2 more houses. Normal houses to normal families. But the mark on my hand still burns, and I know it's only a matter of time. Mr. Henley avoids me at the office. When our eyes meet, he knows something in me has changed. He knows I saw what he never had the courage to see. Yesterday, an email arrived at my work. No sender, just an address. 23 Maple Street. Attached was a golden key, identical to the one from Elm Street. And I know what it means. So if you're looking for a new home, an opportunity that seems too good to be true, remember? Always ask about the basement. Always ask if there's anything strange. And if the realtor hesitates, if they make odd excuses, if they try to change the subject, run. If you've ever visited a house with a strange vibe, let me know in the comments. Just type, I have. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.